how did you go from commercial to private as a pilot?
So this is a crazy story. I actually was, when I had 21 units, I was 30 years old, and I said, okay, what's next? And I knew that by this time, I knew that I wanted to own and operate and control multifamily units. I just didn't have anybody where I was from that was doing like what Grant was doing. So at 30 years old, I said, what's next? And on YouTube and actually BiggerPockets, I found Grant Cardone. And on BiggerPockets Podcast, this is crazy. He's like, look, I've got like 3,000 units. I'm looking to grow. I'm looking to scale. If there's anybody out there who's listening who wants to come and join my team, call me. And I picked up the phone and I called him, and I literally didn't even get an interview with Grant. I got an interview with his team. And they're like, well, we don't really have a job in the real estate yet, because they knew I was a pilot. They're like, we don't even have an airplane yet. It's coming in 2 weeks, but we got a sales job, like a sales role job. And I said, perfect, I'll take it. And so literally 2 weeks later, I packed all my stuff in Scottsdale in Arizona, and I moved out to Miami, and I started working for Grant Cardone. And I knew like the way he was talking about real estate, when I heard him on BiggerPockets, when I heard him on YouTube, like I just knew that he wanted to grow and scale his portfolio. And I was like, man, instead of me doing this by myself, how cool would that be to do it with somebody who has like a huge head start from where I was? And so that's what I did.
Yeah, that's crazy. So how long ago was that?
That was 9 years ago.
Okay, so he was this Grant Cardone. Was he established at this point? I mean, because now obviously he's got a huge name, huge platform, huge portfolio. What did it look like back then? Was he super established? Because it seems like you just took a giant risk, to go work for him. What did you see in kind of where he was at that moment?
Yeah, so I saw the opportunity in the real estate market, but I saw Grant was very passionate, and he understood real estate. He had about 3,000 units at the time. So we kind of operated kind of like a single family, like a family office. So, he would buy the deal, invest it in himself. Like he would buy a deal, he would take his money, he would invest the money, and he would hold it for long term. We didn't have like the Cardone Capital and the crowdfunding and, the 12,000 units. We had none of that. It was literally like Grant Cardone was a business and a consultant, and he had real estate on the side, and that's it.
Man, that's nuts. Okay. And then you didn't even, I thought you were going to say, did you become a private pilot for him, or did you join his sales team?
So I joined a sales team, and then 2 weeks later, he bought a Gulfstream G200. And Elena, I met Elena day one. I was like, look, I love flying airplanes. I had almost 10,000 hours at that time. Like I was literally flying every single day, building up my time. And so I had almost 10,000 hours. I said, I love flying. I love real estate. And I love helping people. And she's like, does Grant know this? I says, no. And she's like, well, we're buying an airplane. And so Grant was looking to hire these other pilots. And he called me in his office one day, and he's like, look, if I hire you to be my pilot, will you also work with me in my companies and in my businesses on the downtime? And I said, where do I sign? And so I literally signed a 3-year contract with Grant to be his pilot, but then also work with him in whatever business, whether it's the sales, whether it's the real estate, whatever it was. I just knew that he was the right guy.
Cool. Wow. What a crazy story, man. I don't think, well, first of all, I think the craziest thing is that you were like, yeah, he said to call him. So I picked up the phone and I called him. I feel like different time.
Rob, I was terrified. Like I was on the line because it's Grant Cardone, right? I was like, when you call anybody, like if I was calling, if I wanted to go work for David and I'm 30 years old, it's like, man, David's this and you're this, like you're like, you don't know what you're calling, right? So I was calling Grant's office, and I was like, I want to come work for Grant. And it was a little bit nerve-wracking because I was taking a huge risk, because I was giving up my career. I was giving up the airlines. I was giving up the 401ks. I was giving up the 18 days off. Like I had built an awesome career for myself, but I just knew there was something bigger.
I want to ask you, when you made the call, because here's why I'm asking, if I'm being transparent. This gets spoken about a lot. We just spoke with Tariq El Moussa today, and he's like, you got to try, you got to reach out. And so this gets spoken about often from influencers. And what that translates into is me getting 40 DMs a day from 23-year-old guys that are like, I'll do this. I'll run your social media. I'll build a course for you. I'll automate something and make money off of you. And meanwhile, this kid has 300 followers, and he's telling me he's going to grow my brand. And it's like exhausting having people reach out and say, I want to work from you. And you're like, what can you do? And they're like, yeah, I don't know. Just tell me what you want me to do. And we get in this stalemate, right? So I'm sure if you spoke to Grant, you came in with a plan, you proposed something and you thought about it. Can you share with our audience the effort you put in before you made the call so we don't give the impression simply making the call leads to life-changing things and you end up on the BiggerPockets podcast and you have this huge story?
Well, look, I think that I started building my resume and I started building my skill set because to your point, you have to have a skill set that adds massive value to the team. Otherwise, you just don't add massive value. Like if I call up Grant and said, hey, I want to run your social media. I want to do this. Like I don't have any experience doing it. What I did is I said, hey, look, I wanted to be super easy, by the way. But I said, look, I've got a career in aviation. Like if you're going to buy an airplane, I will run the entire flight department for you. And I'll do it for free. Like the one thing that people don't realize, like I would have done this for free because when you get really close to somebody like Grant, like David, like Rob, like me now, it's so valuable because you just learn a whole new skill set. And so my pitch was 3 things. I know how to fly airplanes, and Grant actually kind of made a crack at me one day. He's like, do you really know how to fly? I'm like, look, in 4 weeks, I can get type rated on your airplane and I will be the lead captain and I will be there every single day. I haven't called in sick in 10 years at my current airline. And I also have 21 units in real estate that I know they're kind of junk, but I want to grow and scale, but give me the shot at the flying first, and then I'll work into the real estate piece. And so really, I think that was the big value add piece because number one, I was willing to come and make phone calls. I was terrible at it, by the way. I was making sales calls, but I was willing to do it. And that showed Grant really like, I'm willing to do any, like, honestly, guys, I'll sweep the floors. I'll make the phone calls. I could be at the top. I could be at the middle. I could be at the bottom. I'm willing to do what other people are not willing to do. And he saw that from day one. And also it helped that I met Elena on like day 2. And she, because Elena has been a huge part of my success, meaning that, when I got in here, she's like, hey, Ryan likes real estate. Hey, Ryan can fly airplanes. Hey, Ryan like this, like, because that's really what led into me transitioning from being the pilot into real estate.
Few things that we should highlight from that. One, you didn't come with vagueness or ambiguity. You said, I can help you in this way, and here is why you can trust me. When we get someone that reaches out and they're like, just tell me something, that doesn't work. You showed clear value. 2, you said, I'll do it for free. Oftentimes when people reach out, they're hoping that they get paid in some way or it's some kind of a partnership and you don't know who they are. So you're not comfortable with that. So you took the smart road and said, let me just build trust with the person. I'll work for free. And 3, you offered to work in a capacity where you said making phone calls in a system he already had established. Grant did not have to take you and say, follow me around, kid, and I'll teach you the ropes on the first day. He could plug you into a team he already had, and they could evaluate your character, your skills. They could see what you were good at. That would be the equivalent of someone saying, hey, David, I want to come be a real estate agent on your team. I could say yes to that because I could stick them with another agent and they could tell me how they're doing versus I have to be the way to evaluate, which means I'm probably going to say no until I know the person better. So that right there is incredibly valuable.
That's great. I think you nailed down like his like pain point, right? And you're like, a pain point is if you're buying a plane, someone's got to fly the plane, right? Like 1,000% of the time when I work with someone from like that reaches out, it's because they've heard me say something on the podcast. They've heard me say something on my YouTube channel, on Instagram that's like, oh, I'm really struggling with this. Like I cannot figure this thing out. Or does anyone have a recommendation? When someone's like, oh, hey, I've got the solution to that very specific problem you have. Boom. Like door open immediately, right? It's 100% what you said, David. I think you framed that up pretty correctly. Find the value, solve the pain.
Yeah, and Rob, I didn't negotiate too. Like when he said, here's the deal, I just said, hey, where do you want to sign? He's like, I want to do a 3-year deal with you. I was like, I'll do a 10. Because I just knew, I hope that if people could take one thing away, if you can get around the movers and shakers, if you can get around the people who are actually doing deals, that's my advice to all the young guys out there. It's like when I'm to my 21-year-old self, if you could add value to a team, if you can get around a team who's already doing what you want, that is the fast track.